Friday, February 13th, 1987, Alice Martin woke early and made pancakes for her husband of 55 years, Alvin. The retired, well-known small-town postmistress then drove to Sand Prairie Baptist Church and went for her normal 3-mile walk. The normalcy ended shortly. Around 10 a.m., her grandson paid little notice to her car parked in its usual spot. He paid more attention around noon. He contacted the county sheriff, who immediately began putting together a search party. Through the day and into the late evening, the search continued. Searches resumed the next morning. Around 4 p.m., a local realtor in neighboring Robertson County discovered an elderly woman's body behind some shrubs, naked. Medical examiners determined the woman had been seriously strangled and then stabbed to death. The first murder in the county in 10 years found local authorities unprepared for a killer who carved a smiley face into their victim's back. The Joint Task Force from Madison and Robertson County did their best, even having articles written in the local papers. They suspected a relative with a gambling problem. If they knew what Daniel Corwin did when he was 14 years old, they might have looked at him a little closer. We will get to that right after my overly obnoxious trigger warning. Roll the intro. On the Ides of March in 1974, Kathy Choate was babysitting. After rolling a ball with the baby in the yard, they came in through the sliding door. Kathy put the baby to bed and then watched movies. 2 hours later, Kathy hears a noise by the open sliding door and investigates. Kathy closes it. An hour later, the baby cries. As she passes the master bedroom while checking on the baby, a knife-wielding naked 14-year-old boy steps into the hall, pushes her into the bedroom, and orders her to strip. He cuts a piece off of her t-shirt and gags her. Then he assaults her. After the assault, Kathy grabs her clothes and locks herself in the bathroom. She gets a clear look at Danny when he asks for his shirt. He says he's from across town and unknown to her. He's actually from next door and goes to school with her. She misidentifies her attacker but later corrects this. Danny is questioned by police. He denies everything. The police administer 3 inconclusive polygraph tests. A lack of evidence causes police to drop the investigation. With no arrest, the attack does not make the local news. So police are unaware of this in July of 1987 when Deborah Ewing is murdered. Around 4:30 p.m. on July 10, 1987, Ewing bursts through the door that separates the Vision Center, where she is the optometrist, from the Prudential Financial Center, where Gina Schoenfeld works, yelling for help. Ewing tells Schoenfeld a man with a gun is in the parking lot. Schoenfeld sees the lower half of the man through the blinds and panics. She locks herself in an office, hides under the desk, and phones 911. Officer David Watson is across the street. For safety reasons, he waits for backup. He sees no one exit or leave. When backup arrives, he grabs his shotgun and the 2 men enter the offices. They find Schoenfeld. Ewing is gone. Her purse and shoes are on the back sidewalk. The public is alerted and asked to call in with tips. Lacking any evidence, police cannot do much more. Schoenfeld describes the man she saw through the blinds. The Vision Center owner confirms a 28-year-old man matching the description was in the store earlier that day. Corwin. Ewing's body was found the following Sunday in Montgomery County, naked from the waist down. She was assaulted and stabbed twice in the chest. Corwin is questioned. Ben Pruitt says Corwin left work at the cabinet shop at 4:20. The man was seen outside the Vision Center between 4:30 and 4:35. It is a 14-minute drive from the cabinet shop to the Vision Center. Police determined Corwin could not possibly have been the perpetrator, even though Pruitt tells them about Danny's arrest record from his assault on Brenda Evans in 1975. On May 16, 1975, the Corwins had a church camping trip planned. 15-year-old Danny left school at noon. At 2 p.m., Evans left school. In the parking lot, Corwin is sitting on the car next to hers. Corwin opens her door, brandishes a knife, and orders her to move over. She thinks it's a joke and laughs. Eventually, she moves to the passenger seat and Corwin drives from the lot fast. At an abandoned shack a couple miles from the school, Corwin rips off her clothes as she screams and assaults Evans. Corwin then runs into a female classmate who drives him to Dairy Queen for a soda. Evans identifies her attacker as Corwin. He is arrested but gets out on $10,000 bond after 30 days. Eventually, Corwin pleads guilty and is sentenced to 40 years. So you might think he would still be in jail on Halloween of 1987 when Mary Rissinger is murdered, but you would be wrong. Detective Dusty Dowger and his wife took their daughter trick-or-treating in Walker County, Texas in 1987. He stopped by the station to see if he should check anything out. 3 out-of-breath women rush into the station yelling, "There's a dead person at the car wash!" Dowger travels the quarter-mile to the car wash in under a minute. A Cadillac sits in one of the bays. He hears a car door slam and thinks it's his wife. He sees something moving in the back seat. He sees a body lying next to the Cadillac and a small child inside locking all the doors. The child appears dressed as a ballerina painted red, except it's blood. Dowger convinces the child he is a cop and she exits the car. The child says, "My mother has been killed, please help me," and then keeps repeating, "Don't let the bad man hurt me." The woman on the ground is the child's mother, Mary Rissinger, who stopped at the car wash on her way home from a Halloween festival at Walker County Fairgrounds. Mary's bruised face and defensive wounds on her arms tell the story of a woman who put up a fight. The 2 fatal neck wounds puncturing her jugular vein tell who won. The child gives a description of the man's truck and points in the direction he drove. The police issue a bolo or be on the lookout for the truck. The article catches Pruitt's attention the next morning. The truck seems similar to 29-year-old Corwin's, except Corwin's truck doesn't have bars on the back window like this one does. Monday morning, Corwin comes to work. His left hand is bandaged. Corwin claims he cut himself making hot cocoa. Pruitt doesn't think a lot about it. The Walker County Sheriff's Office is inundated with calls providing possible suspects. They believe they have tracked down every last one of them. But there's one that slipped through the cracks somehow. That one is Daniel Corwin. Maybe he slipped through because of Corwin's exceptional inmate record. Remember that 40-year jail sentence? Eventually, Corwin pleads guilty and is sentenced to 40 years. Corwin was sent to the Gladiator Farm and processed into their comprehensive treatment center. In the 1970s and 80s, the Texas population was ballooning. Liberal good time rules were instituted to move old inmates out so new ones had room. Corwin reported hearing voices and seeing things, but was quickly prescribed medicine for schizophrenia and moved to general population. Corwin finished high school and began taking college classes. This, coupled with his perfect behavior, earned him 14 years off his sentence and special privileges in the facility. Unlike other inmates, Corwin could navigate the halls without a pass, providing permission and a destination. He excelled at auto mechanics. Eventually, he became the teacher's assistant. He was also often requested by the people bringing their cars in for service, including the guards. Between the good time and Texas laws stating he only had to serve a quarter of his sentence before parole eligibility, Corwin went before the parole board in 1982, after just 6 years in jail. He was denied the first 3 times. Parole was granted the 4th time in 1985. After serving just 9 years of a 40-year sentence, the 27-year-old Corwin was a free man. He had been free for about 3 years when Wendy Gaunt was attacked at Texas A&M. On Thursday, October 20th, 1988, Wendy Gaunt was getting into a Suburban at Texas A&M. A man appears at her open driver's door brandishing a knife. She attempts to escape out the passenger's door. The man is too quick. He enters the car, ties her wrists with a nylon cord before tossing his backpack into the back seat. The man begins driving the Suburban, explaining that he is stealing the car and will let Gaunt go shortly. The pair arrive at a deserted parking lot in a park. The man forces Gaunt down a footpath and into a clearing. He strips Gaunt and stabs her before slitting her throat. Gaunt plays dead and the man leaves. Gaunt struggles back to the parking area and the man is still sitting in the Suburban. Gaunt hides behind a bush until he leaves. Then she manages to get to the roadway leading into the parking area before collapsing. Shortly, W.T. Gilbert, a county employee, finds Gaunt and radios for help. Corwin was late to work this day and dressed oddly, looking freshly showered. Monday morning, forensic artist Karen Taylor arrives at Wendy's hospital room. The two come up with a sketch of Gaunt's attacker. Police release the sketch on the local news. In less than an hour, a guard from Ferguson calls in stating with unequivocal certainty that the sketch is former inmate 30-year-old Daniel Corwin. Madison County Sheriff Ed Fannin gets Corwin's fingerprints and photos from an arrest for an unpaid traffic ticket that we'll discuss next. Gaunt can't make a positive ID from the photos. None of the prints match the print from the Suburban. Sheriff Fannin requests prints from Corwin's 1976 arrest in Temple. Sheriff Fannin tracks down Corwin's employment and contacts Pruitt. Pruitt is skeptical of Corwin's involvement but agrees to speak with Fannin. The sketch is Corwin. So where did those prints and photos come from anyway? Sometime in early 1988, Danny got a speeding ticket in Robertson County. In mid-September, an arrest warrant was sworn for the unpaid ticket. In an ironic twist of fate, the warrant lands on the desk of Officer Martin, Alice Martin's grandson. Corwin is arrested. Being such a minor offense, they look for someone to release Corwin to. They find Mark Lenormand, Corwin's old auto mechanics instructor from Ferguson. He excelled at auto mechanics. Eventually, he became the teacher's assistant. He was also often requested by the people bringing their cars in for service, including the guards. Officer Martin fingerprinted Danny, but some prints weren't usable because of injuries to his left hand. Corwin comes to work. His left hand is bandaged. Corwin claims he cut himself making hot cocoa. Lenormand also snaps 2 Polaroids of Corwin for his file. This information was provided to Sheriff Fannin from the last chapter, but did not result in a positive identification. That would come from Temple, Texas prints. Corwin pleads guilty to the abduction, assault, and attempted murder. He is sentenced to 99 years. There's not enough evidence to conclusively link Corwin to the Martin, Ewing, and Rissinger murders, but he is suspected of them. Danny meets with consulting psychologist Lou Davis in March of 1989. He confesses to the Ewing and Rissinger murders. Later, Corwin confesses to a detective and includes Martin's murder as well, which is why Corwin got a free needle from the state on December 7th, 1998. Pruitt was the carpentry instructor at Ferguson. Corwin walked through his shop to get to the garage, so they got to know each other. Corwin attended Texas A&M for a semester, and Pruitt gave him a job and rented him a house. Corwin flunked out in one semester, but he didn't tell anyone. I firmly believe that anyone who commits violent crimes has some sort of psychological disorder. Some are most likely treatable, and some are not. However, we have to remember that you can only treat those willing to receive it for psychological disorders. That's why I think everyone convicted of a violent crime should be held in a secure psychiatric facility unless and until psychiatric professionals sign off on releasing them back into the community, and those same professionals should be allowed to place provisions on their continued freedom. I am willing to bet that if this were the case, Corwin would have been released contingent upon continuing treatment for schizophrenia. If he had continued his medication and treatment, the later attacks most likely would not have happened. If he had not, then he would have been put back in the secure facility, and the attacks still would not have happened. Corwin's story is a cautionary tale about why completely revamping the justice system in the United States is necessary for the continued advancement of society. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Also consider becoming a member or throwing me a super thanks. Or both, if you're really generous. And until next time, I got a jam, so tag, you're it.